October 1888. In London, a man opens a small parcel from the post. Inside lies half of a human kidney. Where it came from, to this day, no one knows. Folded in with the parcel is a short letter. Above the text, just 2 words. From hell. By now, 4 women are already dead. A 5th will follow, and the killer will never be caught. Yet one name from those few weeks still travels the whole world today. A name no one ever forgets. Jack the Ripper. Only, the killer never gave himself that name. 5 women in 10 weeks. But who was the man who killed them? And why, after nearly 140 years, does no one still know his name? His name, his letters, his supposed face. Almost everything we believe we know about this man was, in the end, invented and handed to us by others. To understand how a killer vanishes into thin air, you first have to know the place. Whitechapel, in the East End of London. One of the poorest quarters of the largest empire ever seen. Where the rest of London holds about 50 people, here up to 250 are crammed into the same space. Strangers upon strangers, none of whom anyone knows. A labyrinth of dark, narrow alleys with no real lighting. The police walk the same fixed routes that every criminal already knows. Here, a person can vanish without anyone ever looking. In this one quarter live around 1,200 women, all on the edge. For 4 pennies, you get a shared bed for a night. Anyone without them stays on the street. The newspapers would later call them only victims, but they were mothers, daughters, women with names and histories. Their lives become the footnote to a man who, without them, would never have existed. On the night of the 31st of August, Bucks Row lies silent. Then a constable finds a body there. Mary Ann Nichols, 43. Only hours before, she had been turned away, short of those same 4 pennies. Her throat has been cut. The killer struck in a matter of seconds, and then vanished completely into the darkness. And as yet, no one has any idea that this is only the very beginning. 8 days later, in the cramped backyard of Hanbury Street, Annie Chapman, 47. This time, though, something's missing from the body. The killer has cut out internal organs and taken them away. This is no longer a blind, mindless rage. Whoever is doing this works quickly and in total silence. And he has vanished again before anyone even finds the body. For a while, the police believe they have caught their man. A local cobbler the press nicknames Leather Apron, but his alibi holds. The trail leads nowhere, and the murders go on. The police files list 11 separate murders, and yet only 5 of them carry the same hand. Not even the number of women he killed is certain today. And then comes the one night that changes absolutely everything. The 30th of September. Within just a few short hours, the killer will strike not once but twice. Just after 1 in the morning, in Dutfield's yard, Elizabeth Stride, 44, lies there with her throat cut open. But something's clearly missing from this scene. The usual, deliberate mutilations. The reason turns out disturbingly simple. A cart driver turns his pony into the narrow yard. The killer is interrupted and flees before he can finish. But he doesn't stop for long. Just 44 minutes later, and less than half a mile away, Mitra Square. In that short window, the killer has already sought out and found himself a second victim on the same night. Less than an hour before, she had been sitting in a police cell, held for drunkenness. Catherine Eddowes, 46. In the end, they let her go free, and she walked directly into her death. This particular murder falls in a different district. Suddenly, 2 rival police forces are investigating the same case. And on this very night, they destroy their most important clue themselves. In a nearby doorway, officers find a torn piece of Edo's apron, and above it, chalked on the brick wall, a line about the Jews. But at daybreak, the police chief orders it wiped away. He does it out of genuine fear of riots against the Jewish community. And with it, the killer's one possible piece of handwriting is lost forever. No photograph, only hurried copies by the officers, and those copies contradict each other. 80,000 handbills, more than 2,000 people questioned. The largest manhunt London had ever seen. And still, the killer walked, unseen, among the crowd. And it is here that the part of this story almost no one ever hears begins. Because the most famous name in all of criminal history didn't come from the killer at all. It came from a newsroom. Some weeks earlier, a letter written in bright red ink reaches a London news agency. It mocks the police. And, for the first time, it's signed. Signed with the name Jack the Ripper. The name is a gift to the press. It sells more newspapers than anything before it. And a purely local horror is transformed into a figure that the whole world learns to fear. Yet decades later, journalists would confess to something quite astonishing. Two of them are said to have written those very first letters themselves, simply to keep the whole business alive. In 2018, a language expert examines hundreds of these letters. His conclusion: the two most famous of them were probably written by one and the same hand, the hand of a reporter, not of a killer. Perhaps the murderer never wrote a single word. We are left only with the name that others gave him. The truth itself had long since vanished, somewhere between legend and proof. If even the name was invented, one question remains, the one investigators can't let go of. Who was the man in the alleys? Over 100 names were put forward. Who would you have suspected? Let's look at the three best known. The first is a lawyer named Druitt. Shortly after the last murder, he takes his life. For many, the perfect suspect. Yet the day after a murder, he was demonstrably away, playing cricket. Another suspect who simply doesn't fit. The second is a barber named Kuzminski, who lived in the heart of the district. The police suspected him more than anyone. But in the end, the asylum doctors considered him harmless. And then the most famous theory. A grandson of the Queen, a royal murder covered up at the very top. It's a seductive idea. Yet the prince was demonstrably nowhere near London, and the source later admitted he invented it all. And yet, even now, this story still holds. With every suspect, the same pattern repeats. A strong motive, a solid suspicion. And in the end, always a crack that brings it all down. Not a single one holds. Until modern science promises one last, final answer. A century later, science believes it can finally solve the case. Where witnesses had failed, now the DNA itself is meant to speak. And twice the world announces, Jack the Ripper has been unmasked. At the center stands a silk shawl, supposedly from the scene at Mitra Square. A researcher tests it and reports a match. The DNA, they say, convicts Kuzminski. The case seems closed. Slowly, other experts begin to look at it all more closely, and the proof begins to fall apart, piece by piece. In not one single police report from 1888 is a shawl like this ever even mentioned. The fabric itself is later dated to a time well after the murders had already ended, and the officer who supposedly retrieved it from the scene was stationed miles away. At last comes the fatal error. The supposedly rare mutation, the one in 290,000, had been read wrong. In truth, that same marker is normal in nearly every European alive. On top of that, the shawl was handled, unprotected, for 130 years. And this kind of DNA can never convict a person, only rule one out. The last hard proof dissolves into thin air. Even now, the case still remains open. Not because there are no answers to be found, but because every one of them has been shown to be false. And perhaps the most disturbing truth lies precisely there. Not some grand monster in a top hat and cape, but an ordinary, forgettable man who vanished into the same dark alleys that had swallowed his victims. He needed no special malice to stay invisible, only a great city where no one bothered to look too closely. The same crushing poverty that drove his victims onto the street also, quietly, hid him. In the end, we don't know his name, but we should know the names that matter. Mary Ann, Annie, Elizabeth, Catherine, and Mary Jane. 5 real women reduced to the footnote of a phantom. Their deaths did finally change something. For a moment, London looked into the darkness that had swallowed so many. But the alleys stayed dark, and the man inside them a phantom. And that's exactly where his darkest power lies. For as long as no one knows who he was, he could have been anyone. The quiet man next door, the stranger in the crowd. The man who posted that half a kidney was never found either, no more than the killer in the alleys ever was. Some cases are simply never solved. They only show us how easily a human being can vanish into the dark. His name was never written down, and yet, even now, another handwriting is already waiting. Coming next, one more open case, another chapter out of the dark. So which answer would you choose to believe?